With tier 2 gear upcoming, we'll be able to upgrade it to level 12. That's going to require an absolute ton of Growthstones. So in this video, I'm going to cover exactly how many you need in order to max out your weapons, your accessories, and armor. You can already start stocking up now, getting all those materials to craft them. I will also go over the sheer amount of Sollant it's actually going to cost you to do these upgrades. You can see the amount per click significantly increases. So the first thing to note is how many Growthstones you actually need. To get from level 0 to 1, you just need 2 per click. And if you check the question mark here, you can exactly see what are the chances of how much percentage you gain on each click. You can also see the full table of the growth probability here, all the way to level 12. But again, if you don't want to believe a website, that's all displayed in game as well when you just check the question mark. When I click this level up, there's a 40% chance that it will grow for 15% of this level, so 15% of this bar. There's a 10% chance that it will grow for 70%. And this changes throughout the levels. Like if you're starting out, it's a 10% chance for the special and it will fully upgrade it to the next level. Or a common would give like 35%. However, the majority of you are going to skip the early levels by simply using the transfer system. You're going to transfer your max level 9 equipment piece into the new tier 2 piece. Now you're going to want to max trade it first. With only one trait, you only get 240 blessings. Yes, that's double if you were to transfer to another tier 1 item. So if you have a max traded item, that's 2,640 blessings, which is huge and helps you upgrade the traits in your gear, as I've showcased in a previous video. But now we've done the transfer. Our gear piece is now level 6, like we've had going from blue to purple. And then you need to spend the Growthstones to level it up. You already need 14 Growthstones per click of the level up. So you're simply going to go through all of those levels, getting the XP, spending those Growthstones, and yes, it's 2 more Growthstones for every level. Level 7, 16 Growthstones per click. Level 8 is now a whopping 18 Growthstones per click. And we got to get this thing all the way to level 12. When you take into consideration then the probability on the amount of XP you gain, and we look at the average Growthstones it takes in total to max out a gear piece, you will find a table like this. I personally made it in the sheets here, again based on the probability of each of these and how much you actually gain on the XP per click. So what you find is this: you need on average over 528 Growthstones in order to max out a gear piece. However, we can of course skip with the transfer, and this is not accounting for that. We will later. But if you were to do this method to go from level 0 all the way to max, this is how much it would require you. And if you were to look at every single gear piece then to upgrade it, 2 weapons, 6 armor pieces, 5 accessories, that's the requirement of over 1,000 weapon Growthstones, over 3,000 armor Growthstones, and over 2,600 accessory Growthstones. But again, I highly recommend you first transfer your current equipment into it. You will get that piece of equipment to then level 6, like we did blue to purple. So when you do that, the amount of Growthstones you now need is cut down by over 100 because you've already spent that many on your original piece. You're now just transferring that XP to your new gear, again like we did blue to purple. So we only need 422 per armor piece with these probabilities, and again that's the average when you transfer and get it to level 6. So the total ends up at this. You're going to need over 840 weapon Growthstones, over 2,500 armor Growthstones, and over 2,100 accessory Growthstones for the tier 2 update. Are you prepared? Have you got this already? The main place again is crafting them. If you're a pay-to-win player, you may have had other people suggesting to just farm polished crystals. And the reason is because you can buy precious ores like these precious stallons. You simply purchase them from the auction house, or you buy the precious rubrics or the emeralds. But again, that is going to be for a pay-to-win player. Somebody who just wants to rush through this update and hasn't farmed these ores. If you want to do that, then the most efficient thing to do right now is to farm the polished crystals, because that will be what gatekeeps you. You need 1 per growthstone. So if you add up this total to upgrade all of your gear, you would need nearly 5,500 of those polished crystals just to get all of those required growthstones. But of course, you aren't just getting growthstones through crafting. You're going to get them through your ornate coin shop here, which by the way has reset, so go ahead and buy those. You get a bunch through the battle pass, you get a bunch through doing your quests, through Taydell's Tower if you haven't already. But yes, the main way is going to be crafting them. And you need a ton of Sollant to craft them. But yes, for a full tier 2 set, this is what you want. And I would highly prioritize the weapons. They're also the cheapest to go for. These weapons are going to be the most important, as they'll give you this base damage, which will drastically increase your performance. So if you're going to prep for anything in tier 2, is to at least get those 850 weapon growthstones. However, you'll also want Sollant, as the amount to level these up gets super expensive, like over 337,000 just for like level 11 upgrades. You can again see the full table here. If we account for transferring, you can see for armor and accessories, the transfer cost is 1.21 million. You can see that right here when I was doing it. But for weapons, this cost is actually doubled. And that's the same for the level up costs. So in total, you end up with this, needing over 4.6 million Sollant per armor and accessory just to level them up. Simply what you need to spend with these clicks. So that really adds up once you have 6 armor slots, 5 accessory slots, and then the weapons are being doubled, basically being like 4 armor slots. And so the total you'll need is over 70 million Sollant in order to prep for tier 2. If you want to be upgrading everything. So you will save up the Sollant and you will save up the Growthstones and you'll be good to go. As soon as you get this tier 2 gear, once the update's out, you can get it upgraded. And you can of course transfer tier 2 gear to other tier 2 gear. That's no problem. It's just going to cost you a ton of Sollant. So even if you don't get your best in slot, say tier 2 armor piece day 1, you can still get them leveled up and you can use them for the time being until you eventually get what you want. Of course, there is a line there. I would prioritize trying to get your tier 2 weapon ASAP and leveling that up, even if it's not going to be the main one you're using, and you can just say not trait it, just because the sheer amount of extra base damage you gain versus the tier 1 weapons is like significant that it's worth it, even if you don't have it traded. And so just get it to max level 12, then it has the highest base damage and you can always transfer it later. It will cost you a lot of Sollant to transfer, but it will still be worth it. So I hope this helps, and just some tips on how to actually farm for this. Well, Sollant is the easy part. Simply always make sure you're using your Abyssal Contract tokens. In those Abyss dungeons, I personally like Silas Abyss on the 6th floor. There's a nice rotation you can do there, and make sure you're using your food. You can potentially use your bird eggs with the 50% bonus. However, that is not going to stack with the apple pie with the 50% mastery bonus. So you're going to have to choose between the two, and I would definitely prioritize for now mastery until you get a set to level 20. I'm working on my daggers and my spear, and if I later don't want to play those weapons, I can always swap that mastery levels over to a different weapon set, like you can see Korea can already do with these conversion books. And of course, make sure to get the Battle Pass Abundance Fruit. This does stack with the other food, extra 30%, and it also stacks with the Mastery Port, which is another 30%. And that's the main way you get your Sollant. Sollant, guys. Otherwise, simply doing your resistant contracts all the time, 75,000. And when you're doing your open world dungeons here as well, you will get this precious marine, and I highly recommend just selling it. It's worth it for the Sollant. Just be aware you can use it for material transmutation, and otherwise I would highly recommend you actually save onto these ores. Don't sell them. They're not worth it because you will need them for the new mastery update to unlock these node points. You can see the amount you need. The mastery needs like 90 precious marine ore. But you may be wondering about Growthstones. Well, if you look at what's required, you need this magic powder. And the main way to obtain it is to either craft it from, say, the rare magic powder that you're going to get a bunch of by just doing your resistant contracts, or you get it by dissolving gear. Now, if you say dissolve a simple blue piece, you're only getting 10 of the blue magic powder. If you dissolve a simple purple piece, you only get 10 purple magic powder. What you want to do is collect a bunch of gear and trait it up. So if we look for an example, this weapon has been traded a bunch, and now it gives us 151 magic powder. And the more traded it is, or even the higher level it is, the more magic powder we'll get. This giving nearly 600. So that's simply how you get all that magic powder, just through gear and trading that gear and then dissolving it. But then you need these ores, so like precious stallion, rubrics, or emeralds. And you can of course use the other like emeralds here, rubrics or stallions. You can buy the ones from the auction house, but you'll want to farm these. And they'll simply again come from your BIS contracts, killing your enemies here in those open world dungeons, and also just doing your co-op dungeons will give you them too. And honestly, those will be what will gate you the most, but it is what pay to win players can skip by simply buying these off the auction house. And lastly, there's the precious polished crystals. You'll also get them, but a lot more often by killing bosses, doing your abyss dungeons. You can buy some from your guild merchant, and in those co-op dungeons, whenever you kill a mini boss, you will also get those crystals. You may have seen people guiding you to do Tyrant's Isle and kill the first mini boss. He'll give you a bunch of these crystals that you can then craft to get, say, more precious polished crystals. And be aware that your resistance contracts, try and choose the ones that give you the ores and these crystals that you need. If you need skill books, there is the parchments too. These blue ores you can, yes, craft up to the purple ores. Same like you do with those crystals, and you get a bunch here, but you are limited how many contracts you can do per day. But overall, I hope this helps. This is the amount of average Growthstones you'll need for tier 2 to max out a full set. And this is the average amount of Sollant you'll need for that upgrade process alone, just clicking level up. And that's not including the amount of Sollant you'll need to even craft those Growthstones in the first place. Yes, you're going to need an absolute ton. But you can of course already be crafting. You can already be spending that Sollant to make these and just save them up and try go for this amount. Again, all based off these chances, and it's ultimately just an average. Sometimes you'll need more, sometimes you'll need less, but this is the expected amount when you transfer your purple item to make it level 6. On a last note, you might be wondering, is it more efficient to, say, transfer later? Like, should you get the tier 2 item to a certain level, maybe like level 10 or 11 before you transfer? Well, that is something still yet to be found out. And if we get any updates, I'll be sure to let you know. Because yeah, it is a whopping 24 Growthstones needed per click here just to get this thing leveled to 12. It's crazy. Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to the extra support of my channel members. We'll see you all around. Goodbye for now.